Look, I love this job. I love all of you. I'd love to work here, but my parents would never let me work.
Don't come to us if we don't live up to your expectations.
We shouldn't underestimate the importance of being easy to work with. I think I was Gen Z before Gen Z was a thing. Other people looked at me and said, yeah, you definitely need help.
How difficult is it to get that mind shift changed, to think the way that you do?
You very often have to hold their hand for them to be successful.
Which doesn't really give you the best experience when you're going through the process.
Why should that candidate give you 2 or 3 years of their time?
Today, I'm joined by Preeti Bahuguna, someone who I only just met this morning, but has been in the region for a long, long time and spent over 20 years in HR-related roles with some of the world's largest hospitality companies. How would you describe the Middle East job market today for individuals looking for their new role?
It's very vibrant. There's a lot happening in the Middle East in terms of jobs. The Middle East is a desired destination. I get so many calls and emails from people outside the region wanting to come in.
Is it easy for them to do so, do you think?
It's not very hard because employers in the Middle East now are looking at diversity.
Okay.
So earlier, employers would always look at someone who had worked in the Middle East. But now employers are open to varied experiences. They are open to people who've worked in Australia, people who've worked in India, people who've worked in Thailand, people who've worked in the Americas. So the employers
diversity for what reason? Sorry to interrupt, but like, is it a box ticking exercise in terms of diversity, or is it trying to create this cultural mixing pot of experience?
I think it started with a tick the box exercise, but I think over a period, employers now see value in this. And it's not diversity just in terms of nationality, gender, and language, but I think it's also diversity in terms of the experiences that they bring, the life that they've led, the education that they've had, or the education they haven't had.
So how do you then advertise for roles with the companies that you've worked in to try to bring in external people with that diversity?
So you advertise the role on your job portal, and then you scan the CVs that come through. But very, very often, you actively headhunt, like you ask AI what you're looking for.
Okay, and already into AI, good.
Yes, yeah, it's a big time saver. But I also say AI is not only artificial intelligence, it's augmented intelligence. Like you need the person behind who's using AI. So you go online, you see what's out there. Very often, the people who are currently working with you, they come from diverse backgrounds and they may know people that they've worked with in the past that they can recommend. And I find that that's a great source of attracting new talent.
Okay. So you said at the very beginning that you would say it was vibrant, the Middle East market. If I was to go into more detail, obviously there's a lot of people that would love to work here and come here if they're not here already. But do you think that all clients and all companies have the same appetite for people outside the region that you've just referenced?
Unfortunately, they don't. Like a lot of companies, I think especially if they're just starting out or if they are small scale companies, they would rather hire from within. Obviously there's a tendency to make a safe decision, right? Like hire what you know, hire the person for the job who's done the job for a number of years. But I think companies are making bold decisions now and getting people from outside the country, outside the region, who are completely new, and they bring in a totally new perspective.
Okay. So what you're suggesting is that companies are becoming less risk adverse?
Yes.
Okay.
They are starting to, and I think it's because the economy is doing well. So you can take a bit more risk. And then when the economy is not doing so well, you become risk averse.
Is it coming from HR or is it coming from business owners who are like, we've got the top line, we can afford to experiment?
Mix of both. So HR would definitely have a seat at the table and they would say, look, we need more people in the mix, new perspectives and so on. And the management has to buy in and be willing to take that risk.
Okay.
And I'm happy to say that companies are, like managements are becoming very open to bringing people in who've never worked in the UAE.
Okay. And would you say that this is the only shift that you've seen in recruitment specifically in the last 5 years, or have there been other patterns of change that you've also witnessed?
So apart from diversity, the other pattern is, well, there's Emiratisation,
Yeah, of course.
right? So that's great. So in a private organization where you wouldn't have maybe any Emiratis or maybe just one or two, now you'll probably have 10, 12, or 15 working in all different areas. So I think that's great for the Emiratis themselves and for the population that's working within the company, because it helps you understand more about the landscape and the culture of the country that you're operating in. There's Emiratisation. There's also the hiring of Gen Zs, as more and more kids pass out of school
Of course.
or uni, they're joining the workforce, many times as interns, many times as other entry level positions. That's a very interesting shift because this generation's coming in with a whole new set of expectations and norms, really.
I like the part about Emiratisation. And I believe that when you're in this country, you need to provide platforms for everybody, both expats and local nationals. From a hiring perspective and from an expectation perspective in terms of performance, do you unify that no matter where you come from? Or are there special allowances or changes that you have to introduce to support Emiratisation?
I want to start out by saying there is great Emirati talent out there. We just have to go and find it. And we have to understand the cultural norms that we work within and sometimes maybe flex that. Like when I used to work in a hotel, I used to meet amazing Emirati talent, like great girls, very willing, super bright. But they would come and say, look, I love this job. I love all of you. I'd love to work here, but my parents would never let me work in a hotel.
Mm.
So sometimes
Why would they not let them work in a hotel?
Alcohol.
Okay.
So parents think that even if you're working in HR or you're working in marketing or you're working in sales, you're surrounded by alcohol and drunk people all the time. But that's a cultural constraint, right?
Yeah.
So sometimes we would go out and meet these parents and we would assure them that, it's a very safe place to work in.
So you'd even, from looking at Emiratisation, you'd even go to the families to educate them and advise them on why it would be a good move.
Yeah, there were candidates who said, well, look, I would love to work here, but can you talk to my dad?
Okay. If I came to you for a job and I said, can you talk to my mum or dad about it? Would you do that? Or would you just do it for Emiratisation?
No, we would actually do it for everyone because we need more young people joining the industry, right? And we must look after all employees and by relation then all candidates. And if it's a great candidate, why not spend 10 minutes talking to someone's parents?
I agree. Look, I think if you're going to put that much time into something, what is the difference of 10, 15 minutes when you've spent 80 hours trying to find the right person?
Absolutely agree. And
disproportionate focus makes perfect sense.
Yeah, like with interns, so many times you speak to their parents and assure them that everything is okay and we'll get the children to push themselves to their limits, but they'll still work in a safe environment. They won't come home drunk. So, yeah.
Good allowance. It's almost like being a chaperone a little bit. So, in terms then of the biggest challenges that you think HR are facing in recruitment today, we spoke about diversity being one of those. We then spoke about Emiratisation, which I really loved your point. We touched upon Gen Zs. Is there anything outside of this that also forms a big challenge for recruitment?
The market is very, very competitive.
From a candidate perspective or a client perspective?
From a candidate perspective.
Okay.
Like if you're a good candidate, there are several companies that would want to employ you. It's then important for companies to put themselves out there, right? So talk more about their culture, talk more about what kind of vibe they have in the office, talk more about if the candidate decides to work for them versus work for a competitor, what will they get? Why should that candidate give you 2 or 3 years of their time? So I think it's very important for companies to put themselves out there.
It's interesting that you say that, good talent has lots of options and choice. To a degree, I would say yes. But I would also say that if you look at people economics, there are more candidates looking than there are jobs available. So is it a buyer's market or is it a candidate market like you led?
If you're a good candidate, then it's a candidate's market.
Okay.
And if you're a great company, then it's a company's market.
Okay. So if I was to say, like, are there any particular types of roles that you feel like there is a lack of good talent out there for?
No, I wouldn't say that. I think there's good talent out there for all roles. You just have to look in the right places, right? Because there's loads of schools now that teach everything that you want your candidates to know. And then if the candidate has worked as an intern or has some kind of other work experience, they're great for an entry level role. And then if they come from a company with streamlined processes and, they've had a few years in an entry level role, then you take them for a mid level role.
Okay. So what now constitutes a good talent in today's market? Like, what are the things that you would prioritize in terms of your analysis and assessment?
So I think we shouldn't underestimate the importance of being easy to work with. So, first impressions are still very important. So I would say first impression, how easy the candidate is to talk to and to get along with. And then you do various levels of interviews. Like, so you would look for a skill fit, you'd look for a role fit, you'd look for culture fit. I would actually, in many, many junior positions, you would hire for culture fit or attitude rather than for skill, and then you train them on the skill.
I guess that's true, right? You focus on the human skills. If they haven't been in employment so long, you know that maybe their exposure to the technical part is limited.
Yeah.
Because that's the only thing you can change, the technical side. So would you say then, I mean, is this unique to kind of your industry in terms of hospitality and leisure and travel, or is it something which you see across all industries?
Across all industries, actually, you see kids coming out of school, going in as interns and doing really well.
So then going back to the point about how you as an employer redefine who you are and make yourself stand out, are you involved a lot in employer branding and EVP and things around attraction and retaining from an employer perspective?
Yes, very much so.
Okay.
So we've just had a recent success story of, so we'd been looking for someone for the HR team, someone who spoke a particular language. And we were looking for this candidate. And then we had one candidate who applied online. And then he wrote to us because he saw one of my LinkedIn posts around when we did a karaoke night. So that piqued his interest. He's like, oh, let me see which company does a karaoke night that 100 colleagues show up to. So then he looked at my post. He found out about the company. He looked at the jobs available, and there was a job available that he applied for. And he's now working with us.
That's great. Is this a kind of a tactic and strategy that you wanted to post this to elevate the brand of the company?
It is very much to talk about what culture your company has, what vibe your company has. Because one of the things that Gen Z candidates are doing or should do is they should research about the company and they should opt to work in a company where there's a vibe match or culture match. So yes, we definitely want to say what kind of employer we are. And if you're this kind of person who would thrive in this environment, please apply and come and join us. And if you're not, if it doesn't match your values, then please look for a company that matches your values.
I like that. That's the old takeaway. Don't come to us if you don't if we don't live up to your expectations.
Right.
But then this is also how you attract and retain Gen Z. So my first question to you would then be, how do you create an environment and a culture that supports a multi-generational workforce?
So I want to start out by saying that I think I was Gen Z before Gen Z was a thing. I never believed in power distance. I always talked about mental health.
Yep.
When other people looked at me and said, yeah, you definitely need help. At the risk of being called crazy myself, I always loved tech. I had very short attention span, and I love Subway Surfer.
Yeah.
Do you know what that is?
I don't know what Subway Surfer is. No, I was about to ask, what is it?
Oh, it's a game where you have a Subway Surfer.
I still don't know what a Subway Surfer is.
Oh, you should. It's very addictive.
But I have an addictive personality, so if I Google it, I'm going to download it and start playing it.
It's amazing. So it's a great game, Subway Surfer. And then my son told me that if YouTube content creators want Gen Z to like their content, like along with whatever they're saying, they play Subway Surfer.
Right. Okay.
So yeah, I like Subway Surfer.
I'm going to Google that. So these are the things that you would constitute as a kind of a Gen Z makeup.
So that was me, right? So Gen Z are actually taking it a step forward. Like they actually have boundaries. And they are not just looking for a job that pays them money. They're actually looking for an overall experience. So they're not willing to put in 2 or 3 years for the employer to start caring about them. They want the employer to care about them from day one.
And they want purpose, I guess, around why they're
Absolutely.
doing what they're doing.
Yes. So I also started out by looking for purpose, and everyone looked at me like I was crazy.
Well, I guess when you were looking for a job 15, 20 years ago, it was like, this is a job. Can you do it? Yes. Great. Go and sit down and do it. There was no appetite to listen to what your purpose was or what you wanted to try and get out of it. And I guess that also then leans into, the way that you think, is that the way that other stakeholders also think within your companies?
Not necessarily, but I think we have to bring them round. We have to bring them round with this way of thinking, right? So, as human beings, we all start out and want to be understood, right?
We do.
So, yeah, so Gen Zs want to be understood. And I think we have to start by trying to understand them and say that things like, the other stakeholders may think mental health is just a buzzword. For Gen Z, it's a real thing. And you must provide mental health support. You must look after them. And like we were saying, you were saying that it's almost like being a chaperone. The people coming into the workforce now are so young that, if they're living away from their families, you very often have to hold their hand for them to be successful.
Okay. So looking at yourself and then looking at other stakeholders in the business, if they're not aligned with your ideology on how you recruit and how you attract, are you not going to suffer the problems of people coming through you initially, being all engaged, all happy, and then speaking to someone else who dismisses what's important to them?
So it's very important to tell the Gen Z candidates what the workplace is going to look like. So I think it's very important to give them a realistic expectation that, people won't talk about their mental health.
So do
for the
you
entire
suppress
8
their
hours.
questioning, and do you suppress their objectives during the interview process?
I think it's very important to be honest to them and say, look, as an organization or as a workforce landscape, the world is changing. You also would have to adjust a bit, right? So like how we want our current stakeholders to understand the Gen Z, I think it's important for Gen Z also to develop a bit of understanding, and the two shall meet in the middle.
Two shall meet in the middle. Well, obviously it's being successful at the moment, I guess. Your ability to attract and retain Gen Zs is in the right direction, or still needs a little bit of work?
It is in the right direction, but it still needs work.
Okay. And then if we talk about work and we talk about AI and automation and the impact that's having on how we recruit, speed, efficiency, finding people who hit the right marks. What have you done, or what are you leading at the moment to bring AI and automation into your recruitment processes?
Most of the ATSs now have an AI element built in. So it's very, very helpful when you want to shortlist CVs. It's great when you can put filter questions. So it's great. And that allows the recruiter more time to actually engage with the shortlisted candidates and have a real human conversation with them.
Do you think you might be missing out good candidates through an ATS system that might be too difficult to crack?
Now, candidates have also wisened up to the fact that employers are using ATSs.
Yes.
So I advise and all candidates also to tailor their CV for a job that they really want. Like if it's a job that you really want to go after, please tailor your CV, find out who the recruiter is, write to them, find out who the hiring manager is, and send them a note.
Okay.
But not just like a hi, how are you doing today? Like, write them a paragraph of why you're interested in this role.
So if I was a candidate applying to you and I thought I had the perfect CV, I sent it across, it went through the ATS and then got rejected, how quickly would I be notified of that rejection?
Oh, very quickly, in a few days.
In a few days?
Yeah.
Okay. So because some companies the ATS will automatically send a rejection within seconds, which doesn't really give you the best experience when you're going through the process.
Yeah.
So have you just tweaked the timelines to say reject after 48 hours to look like we've actually taken some time to consider the profile?
There's that. And then there's the fact that you actually do want to spend some time considering the profile. So I would encourage recruiters also to go through the CVs that have been rejected by AI.
Looking at your career before we came onto this, I said you've worked with some amazing brands and you've also done work in lots of different locations around the world. Being here now in the Middle East for so long, What advice would you give to organizations that are looking to scale quickly, given the dynamics of the recruitment space at the moment?
So the most important thing I would say is to keep an open mind.
Okay.
And move away from things that have been done before. So
And what
maybe,
has been done before?
you've always hired for experience, right? You've always hired for, well, what has this person done? And then that has always defined the ability of that person to do the current job that you're looking for. I think there's a need to look beyond that and look at what unique skills or experiences the person brings to the role and how they may be successful in your current organization.
Okay.
Because maybe they bring something that your organization is lacking, right? Maybe they're that missing piece of the jigsaw.
I wish everyone looked at recruitment the way that you do. I don't know if you know this, because it's probably quite natural to you, but you're in a very small group of individuals when it comes to the ideology of recruitment and the focus on human skills and added value beyond the technical tick box that most people do. You've obviously tried to educate internally within your own companies. How difficult is it to get that mind shift change to think the way that you do?
Well, it's not very easy, but it's also not very difficult. Like, I feel like managers tend to be open-minded now.
Mm,
So yeah, not that hard really,
okay.
but also not very easy.
And this is where I think confusion with candidates typically happens, because if they're talking to you, they know exactly what you're they're able to communicate that's going to make them tick, or make you tick, I guess. But when they're talking to someone who's a stakeholder who's looking at the functional capability because they're more focused on the problem they have now rather than long-term career, that's where you almost have to be a chameleon in these processes. Any advice to candidates on that side?
Again, keep an open mind. And when you're meeting the person who's going to be your line manager, please ask them all the questions that are important to you.
Okay. Preeti, thank you very much. I really have enjoyed the conversation. Thank you for listening. For more from ChatGRG, follow us on Instagram, YouTube, TikTok. See you next time.